In this video, I want to talk about why your ASD husband is polite to strangers but maybe hostile to you. We'll just call that selective masking, okay? Have you ever watched your ASD husband, for example, spend an hour chatting pleasantly with the neighbors, smiling warmly at the cashier, making jokes with coworkers, and then walk through the front door only to become irritable, withdrawn, or maybe even explosive with you? So, if you're in a neurodiverse marriage, this may be one of the most painful experiences you face because you begin asking yourself questions that are really impossible to answer. For example, like, well, if he can be kind to everyone else, why can't he be kind to me? Or does he just not love me anymore? Or is everyone else seeing the real version of him while I'm stuck with the worst version? So, for many neurotypical partners, this behavioral contrast feels emotionally devastating. Friends and family often don't believe what happens behind closed doors because they've only experienced the charming, respectful version of your ASD spouse. The result is that many NT spouses begin doubting their own reality. So today I want to explain something that can completely change how you understand this pattern. Not because it excuses harmful behavior, no, it doesn't. But because understanding what's happening neurologically gives you a much better chance of responding effectively instead of becoming trapped in cycles of confusion, blame, and resentment. So today we're talking about something called selective masking. And once you understand it, many pieces of your marriage may suddenly start to make sense. So let's begin with what masking actually is. Most autistic adults, as you know, I'm sure, especially those who weren't diagnosed until adulthood, have spent decades learning how to appear socially normal. They learned to minimize conversational rules. They learned when to smile. They practiced eye contact. They rehearsed facial expressions. They learned scripts for greetings. They trained themselves to suppress stimming. They've monitored every word they say. Now, most people never notice this. They simply conclude, he's really polite, or he's easy to work with, or he's quiet but friendly. What they don't see is the enormous amount of neurological effort happening underneath the surface. Imagine constantly translating every sentence before you speak. Imagine calculating body language while simultaneously trying to understand everyone else's emotions. That's closer to what social interaction often feels like for many autistic adults. The brain isn't simply participating, it's calculating constantly. Now, here's where things become complicated. The brain has limited resources. Every human being has emotional energy. We all have nervous systems that eventually become depleted. But autistic nervous systems often burn through those resources much faster because everyday social interactions require significantly more conscious processing. By the time your ASD spouse finishes work, attends meetings, makes small talk, handles interruptions, suppresses sensory overload, interprets facial expressions, filters background noise, monitors his own behavior, his nervous system may already be approaching exhaustion. Not emotionally exhausted in the ordinary sense, but neurologically exhausted. And that's an important distinction. Let's use an analogy. Think about your phone battery. You leave home at 100%, GPS is running, streaming music is running, multiple apps are open, the screen brightness is turned all the way up. By evening, your phone isn't broken. It simply has 2% battery remaining. The phone still exists, but it has almost no capacity left. And most autistic adults arrive home in exactly that neurological state. Their emotional battery isn't empty because of you. It's empty before they even walk through the front door. Now, here's where the neurotypical partner gets confused. You are the safest person in his life. Ironically, that safety becomes the place where masking finally stops. At work, he continues performing. With strangers, he continues monitoring. With acquaintances, he continues suppressing frustration. Then he walks through the front door, and the mask comes off. Unfortunately, what comes off with the mask is emotional regulation. Instead of patience, you see irritability. Instead of warmth, you may experience bluntness. Instead of flexibility, you encounter rigidity. Instead of conversation, you get silence. Now, from your perspective, it feels deeply personal, doesn't it? Everyone else gets his best. I get what's left. Well, that pain's real. And I want to validate something very important here. Even if neurological exhaustion explains the behavior, it doesn't erase the emotional impact on the spouse. Living with someone's nervous system that collapses every evening is exhausting. Feeling emotionally unsafe is exhausting. Feeling unseen is exhausting. So if you've been hurt by this pattern, your experience is real. Your pain deserves acknowledgement. Having said that, let's look inside the autistic nervous system during these moments. When the ASD brain has spent hours filtering information, suppressing overload, maintaining social performance, and on and on and on, something begins happening physiologically. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain involved in planning, impulse control, and flexible thinking, and emotional regulation, becomes less effective under prolonged stress. Meanwhile, the nervous system begins shifting toward survival. Tolerance decreases. Noise feels louder. Questions feel overwhelming. Unexpected changes feel threatening. Decision-making becomes harder. Even ordinary conversations may suddenly feel impossible. Now, from the outside, it looks like hostility. From the inside, it feels like neurological overload. Again, that doesn't make hurtful words acceptable, but it changes what intervention is likely to work. So here's what usually happens. The neurotypical wife has been looking forward to reconnecting all day. She just wants some conversation, some connection, maybe some problem solving, maybe some planning, maybe a little affection. Wouldn't that be nice? But she's unknowingly approaching someone whose nervous system is already operating on emergency reserves. She interprets withdrawal as rejection. He experiences conversation as one more demand. She pushes harder because she wants reassurance. He withdraws further because his brain needs recovery. She feels abandoned. He feels attacked. Now, neither person understands what the other's nervous system is experiencing, and conflict begins. Now, one of the biggest mistakes couples make is assuming these moments are relationship problems. Often it's timing problems. The conversation isn't impossible, the timing is. Imagine asking someone to solve a difficult math problem immediately after running a marathon. They may eventually solve it, but not while collapsing at the finish line. Your autistic spouse needs decompression before reconnection. Remember that phrase, decompression before reconnection. Not because the autistic partner doesn't love NT spouse, but because his nervous system requires recovery before relationship engagement becomes possible. Now let's be very careful here. Some people misuse neurological explanations to excuse emotional abuse. That's not what we're doing here. If someone repeatedly intimidates, belittles, controls, or abuses their spouse, neurology never justifies that. Understanding explains, but it does not excuse. Healthy autistic adults learn responsibility. They learn self-awareness. They learn to recognize when their emotional battery is running low. They communicate that. They build recovery routines. They apologize when necessary. They repair after conflict. Diagnosis explains the challenge. It does not remove responsibility. So what actually helps? Okay, well, the first step is predicting depletion before volatility begins. Many couples unknowingly wait until someone explodes before realizing overload has been building for hours. Instead, begin recognizing patterns. Does conflict usually happen immediately after work, after going to the grocery store, after family gatherings, after long social events, after noisy environments? Those patterns are valuable information. They're showing you when the nervous system is reaching its limit. Second, create intentional decompression. Instead of assuming home should immediately become relationship time, allow transition time. Maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 45 minutes, maybe it's an hour. Whatever allows his nervous system to settle before emotional demands increase. Now, this isn't emotional avoidance, it's neurological recovery. Third, the autistic partner needs ownership. Rather than disappearing without explanation, say something like, my brain is overloaded right now. I want you to know I love you, but I kind of need 30 minutes or so to reset, and then I'd like to talk. Notice how different that feels from silent withdrawal. One creates rejection, the other creates predictability, and predictability builds safety. Now, for the neurotypical wives out there, I want to say something directly to you. If you spent years wondering why strangers receive kindness while you receive irritability, you're not imagining the difference. The contrast is real. Your confusion is understandable. Your hurt makes sense. But that contrast doesn't automatically mean you're less loved. Most of the time, you're simply encountering the nervous system after it's spent an entire day protecting itself. And ironically, you're seeing the person without the mask. The problem isn't authenticity. The problem is exhaustion. Imagine what could happen if couples stopped asking, why are you like this? And instead asked, what state is your nervous system in right now? That's an entirely different conversation. So instead of accusation, be curious. Instead of blame, do an assessment of his nervous system. Instead of personalizing, try to understand neurological overload. Those questions don't solve every problem, but they often prevent unnecessary battles. So here's the bottom line. Most autistic adults spend so much neurological energy functioning successfully in the outside world that they return home with almost nothing left to give. Now, that reality can leave the neurotypical spouse feeling deeply neglected, lonely, and emotionally wounded. That's true. One partner experiences neurological collapse, the other experiences emotional abandonment. And healing begins when both realities are acknowledged at the same time. Because successful neurodiverse marriages aren't built by deciding whose pain matters more. They're built by understanding both nervous systems, protecting both partners' emotional well-being, and creating daily rhythms that allow each person to bring their best self home. Now, if today's video helped explain something you've been experiencing, I'd encourage you to share it with your partner. Sometimes one new framework can replace years of misunderstanding. And if you're committed to building a healthier neurodiverse marriage, subscribe to the channel. Each week, we explore practical, research-informed strategies that help autistic and neurotypical spouses move from confusion and conflict towards greater understanding, connection, and hope. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, this is Mark Hutton. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendar link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.